Have you ever made a big decision only to look back later and think, why on earth did I do that? You were sure it was logic, positive you'd weighed all the pros and cons. But what if it wasn't logic at all? What if the choice to take that job, end that relationship, or move to that new city wasn't made by the rational part of your brain you trust so much? The truth is, for most of us, a huge portion of our biggest life choices are driven by a handful of powerful feelings we don't even notice. They operate in the background, quietly pulling the strings on your health, your wealth, and your happiness. You think you're in control, but these hidden emotions are often the real puppeteers. They're the invisible architects of your reality, designing your future with blueprints you've never even seen. Now, while emotion scientists like Paul Ekman and Robert Plutchik have identified a core set of universal, basic emotions, what we're talking about today are the complex emotional patterns that show up in our lives. These aren't just simple feelings, they're feedback loops. They're ancient survival mechanisms designed to help us respond to the world. But because they operate below our conscious awareness, they can often steer us wrong. They create patterns of self-sabotage, confusion, and that nagging feeling of being stuck. You feel the consequences, the dead-end job, the strained relationships, the constant anxiety, but you can't see the cause. It's like trying to navigate a ship in a storm without a compass, tossed around by waves you can't predict. But what if you could see them? What if you could shine a light on these hidden forces, understand their language, and finally take the helm of your own life? In this video, we're going to uncover 7 of these powerful emotional patterns that might be running your life. We won't just name them, we're going to explore how they disguise themselves in your everyday behaviors. And I'll give you the tools to finally see them clearly so you can take back control. So before we get into the very first hidden dynamic, one that keeps millions of people trapped in inaction, do yourself a favor. If you're ready to stop being a passenger in your own life and start being the driver, take a moment to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This isn't just another video, this is your first step toward real emotional clarity. Join us and let's start this journey together. All right, let's jump right in. The first hidden emotional pattern, and one of the most widespread, isn't as obvious as a panic attack or a phobia. It's far more subtle. It's fear, but it wears the clever disguise of procrastination. You know the feeling. There's an important task on your to-do list, genuinely important. It could be applying for a dream job, starting the business you've been fantasizing about, or having a difficult but necessary conversation. You know logically that doing it will move your life forward. You have every reason to get it done, and yet you don't. Instead, you suddenly find an urgent need to clean your entire apartment. You decide now is the perfect time to binge watch that new series. You fall into a 2-hour rabbit hole of social media, telling yourself you're just taking a break. You say, I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll start when I feel more ready. But tomorrow becomes next week and ready never seems to show up. Let me be crystal clear about something. This is not laziness. It is not a character flaw or a sign of poor time management. It's a sophisticated subconscious defense mechanism. Procrastination is, in most cases, an emotional regulation problem. You're delaying the task not because you can't do it, but because on some deep, primal level, you are afraid of what the task represents. What you're really avoiding isn't the task itself, it's the uncomfortable emotion the task triggers. It's the fear of failure. What if you apply for that dream and you don't get it? The rejection would sting, confirming a secret fear that you're not good enough. What if you start that business and it fails? You'd have to face everyone who doubted you. What if you have that conversation and it ends the relationship? The pain of that loss feels unbearable. The subconscious logic is brutal and simple. If I don't start, I can't fail. Procrastination acts as an emotional safety brake, a way to postpone dealing with that fear. By avoiding the task, you get immediate relief from the anxiety it causes. The problem is, this relief is temporary, and it comes at a huge long-term cost. The fear doesn't go away, it just gets bigger in the shadows, leading to more guilt and shame. This creates a vicious cycle. Fear leads to procrastination, which leads to poor outcomes, which reinforces the initial fear of failure, making you even more likely to procrastinate next time. So how do you recognize this in yourself? The next time you're endlessly delaying something, pause and ask yourself, what am I really afraid of right now? Go deeper than "I'm tired." Are you afraid of being judged? Of not being perfect? Are you afraid of success and the new pressures it might bring? Pay attention to your body too. When you think about the task, do you feel a tightness in your chest? Does your stomach feel uneasy? Your body often knows the truth before your mind is ready to admit it. Now for the solution. First, give yourself a break. Stop beating yourself up. Acknowledge that you're doing it because you're scared, and that's a human response. Studies show that self-compassion can actually reduce future procrastination because it breaks the cycle of shame. Second, break the task down into ridiculously small pieces. The fear is often tied to the enormity of the outcome. You're not starting a business, you're researching one competitor for 15 minutes. By making the first step so small it feels non-threatening, you can bypass the fear response and build momentum. And finally, reframe your relationship with failure. See it not as a final verdict on your worth, but as data. It's just feedback. People with a growth mindset, the belief that abilities can be developed, are less afraid of failure because they see it as a learning opportunity. If you try and fail, you haven't proven you're worthless. You've simply learned one way that doesn't work. That's it. So what have you been putting off? Be honest, that delay isn't a sign of laziness. It's a signpost pointing directly to one of your deepest fears. And the only way out is through. The second hidden emotional pattern is a silent force that often masquerades as a virtue. It's the poison that looks like medicine. This pattern is driven by shame, and its clever disguise is perfectionism. On the surface, perfectionism looks admirable. We praise the straight A student, the employee who triple checks every detail. We call them dedicated and high achieving. But beneath this polished exterior often lurks a deep, gnawing fear of being fundamentally flawed. There's a key difference between guilt and shame. Researcher Dr. Brené Brown puts it perfectly. Guilt says, "I did something bad." Shame whispers, "I am bad." Guilt is about a behavior. Shame is an attack on the self. It's the intensely painful feeling that we are unworthy of love and belonging. And because this feeling is so excruciating, our subconscious will do almost anything to avoid it. That's where perfectionism comes in. It becomes a shield. The thinking goes, if I can be perfect, if I look perfect, work perfectly, achieve perfectly, then no one will ever see the flawed, inadequate person I secretly fear I am. Perfectionism isn't about healthy striving for excellence. It's a defensive strategy driven by a fear of judgment. It's not about moving toward a goal. It's about running away from the feeling of shame. Imagine a talented graphic designer. She gets a new project, but as she starts, the inner critic takes over. Is this good enough? What will the client think? It has to be groundbreaking, otherwise they'll realize I'm a fraud. She spends hours agonizing over tiny details, missing deadlines because she's paralyzed by the fear that her work won't be perfect. Her conscious mind says she's doing a good job, but her subconscious is screaming, "Don't let them see you're not good enough." This is the perfectionism trap. The bar is set so impossibly high that any attempt to start feels overwhelming. This is why perfectionism is a direct cause of the first pattern we discussed: procrastination. How do you recognize if shame-driven perfectionism is running your life? Ask yourself, do you dwell on minor mistakes long after they've happened? Do you feel that even when you succeed, you just got lucky? Are you terrified of criticism, seeing it as a judgment on your character, not your work? Do you avoid new challenges because you're afraid you won't master them immediately? Another telltale sign is your self-talk. Is your inner dialogue harsh and critical? That voice is the voice of shame. The paradox of perfectionism is that it doesn't lead to a better life. It leads to chronic stress, anxiety, and burnout. It also sabotages connection because it prevents you from being vulnerable and authentic. You're so busy performing perfection that you never let anyone see the real you. So what's the antidote? Empathy and self-compassion. First, you have to name it. Acknowledge the feeling of shame when it shows up. Research has shown that shame thrives in secrecy. Just saying to yourself, "I'm feeling a wave of shame right now," can take away some of its power. Second, practice self-compassion. Treat yourself with the same kindness you'd offer a struggling friend. When that critical voice starts, ask, "Would I ever talk to someone I love this way?" Shift your goal from being perfect to being human. Third, share your feelings with someone you trust. Shame cannot survive being spoken. When you share your fears with a friend and they respond with empathy, it breaks the spell. You realize you are still worthy of connection, imperfections, and all. Finally, consciously choose good enough. Challenge the impulse by intentionally turning in B+ work. Allow a typo in an email. Let your house be a little messy. This is like exposure therapy for perfectionism. It teaches your nervous system that the world doesn't end when things aren't perfect. In fact, it might just open the door to more joy and deeper connections than perfection ever could. The third hidden emotional dynamic is one of the most taboo feelings in our society. It's so uncomfortable that most of us will perform complex mental gymnastics to avoid admitting we feel it. This emotion is envy, and its most common disguises are dislike, criticism, or indifference. Envy is the painful feeling of wanting what someone else has: their success, their relationship, their talent. But because admitting envy can feel like admitting you are less than, our ego steps in to protect us. It creates a new story. Instead of thinking, "I feel a pang of envy because my colleague got the promotion I wanted," your mind might tell you, "I don't like him. He's so arrogant and only got that promotion because he's a suck-up." Instead of acknowledging, "I envy her happy relationship," your thoughts might drift to, "She posts about her partner way too much. It's all so fake for social media." See the switch? The uncomfortable feeling of envy is transformed into the much more empowering feeling of judgment. You're no longer the one who is lacking. You are the one with superior insight. This happens all the time, especially on social media, which is basically an envy-generating machine. You're scrolling and see an acquaintance on a lavish vacation or a friend celebrating a book deal. You might feel an unpleasant tightening in your chest, but instead of labeling it envy, you find yourself nitpicking. The photo is probably photoshopped. He probably went into debt for that trip. These are all defense mechanisms against the raw feeling of, "I wish I had that." Poisonous praise is another classic sign, the backhanded compliment. "Congratulations on your new car. I could never spend that much on something that just gets you from A to B." The compliment is just a delivery system for the envy-laced judgment. So how do you recognize hidden envy in yourself? It takes brutal honesty. First, pay attention to your gut reactions. When you hear about someone else's success, what's the very first split-second feeling? Is it genuine happiness for them, or is it a micro-expression of disappointment? Second, question your strong negative opinions. The next time you find yourself intensely disliking or criticizing someone, especially someone you don't know well, pause and ask yourself, "Would I feel this way if I had what they have?" If their success was your success, would your criticisms vanish? If the answer is maybe, you're likely dealing with envy. Third, look for patterns of gossip. Envy often fuels a desire to tear others down. It's an attempt to level the playing field by pulling them down, rather than building yourself up. Now, to be clear, envy is a natural human emotion. It's considered a secondary or more complex emotion that is learned and not innate. The problem isn't feeling envy. The problem is letting it operate in the dark, where it turns into resentment and bitterness. When you ignore your envy, you miss the crucial information it's giving you. And that brings us to the solution. Use it as a compass. Envy points directly to what you desire. That feeling is a powerful clue from your subconscious about your own unfulfilled aspirations. Instead of letting it curdle into dislike, get curious. When you feel that pang of envy, stop and ask, "Okay, interesting. What is this feeling telling me that I want?" If you envy someone's fitness, it's a sign you want to prioritize your own health. If you envy their creative project, it's a sign you have a creative impulse you've been neglecting. Once you identify the desire, you can turn envy into a catalyst for action. Use that person not as a target for your resentment, but as a model for what is possible. This transforms a destructive emotion into a constructive one. You shift from a fixed mindset that sees success as a limited pie to a growth mindset that believes there is enough for everyone. So the next time you feel that urge to criticize someone's success, stop. Have the courage to admit, I feel envy. And then ask, what is this here to teach me about what I truly want for my own life? By doing this, you stop being a passive critic and become an active creator. The fourth hidden emotional pattern is the slow-burning poison of relationships. It's an anger that has been suppressed, a hurt that has gone unaddressed. This emotion is resentment, and its primary disguise is passive-aggressive behavior. Resentment is what happens when you feel you've been wronged, but you don't or can't express your anger directly. Maybe you were afraid of conflict. Maybe you felt powerless. So instead of dealing with the anger head-on, you swallow it. But it doesn't disappear. It goes down into the basement of your psyche and starts lifting weights. It grows stronger in the dark, morphing into a bitter sense of injustice. Because this resentment needs an outlet, it seeps out sideways. This is passive aggression. It's the sarcastic comment with a sting of truth. It's accidentally forgetting a promise to someone you're upset with. It's agreeing to do something with a smile, but then doing it with sighs so heavy they suck the oxygen out of the room. It's the silent treatment where you use withdrawal as a weapon. Let's paint a picture. You ask your partner to help with chores. They agree, sure, no problem. But days go by and nothing gets done. When you bring it up again, they say, oh, I was just about to do it, with a slightly irritated tone. Or maybe they do the chore, but with loud, dramatic banging of pots and pans, making their displeasure known without a single word. What's happening? They likely felt resentful about being asked. But instead of saying, I'm feeling overwhelmed and it feels unfair that you're asking me to do more, they suppressed it. The resentment then leaks out through their actions, or lack thereof. This pattern is incredibly destructive because it erodes trust and makes genuine communication impossible. The person on the receiving end feels confused and frustrated. They know something is wrong, but the passive-aggressive person will often deny it, saying, I'm fine, which is another form of passive aggression called stonewalling. How do you recognize hidden resentment in yourself? First, look for passive-aggressive behaviors. Do you often use sarcasm? Do you forget to do things for others? Do you give people the silent treatment? Second, listen to your internal monologue. Do you replay past grievances over and over? Do you have imaginary arguments where you finally say all the things you wish you had? This mental rumination is a hallmark of resentment. Third, notice feelings of bitterness or cynicism. If you feel a general sense of irritation towards a person or a lingering sense that you're being taken for granted, that's likely resentment. So how do you heal this? The only way to dissolve resentment is to drag it into the light with direct, assertive communication. First, acknowledge the anger to yourself. Give yourself permission to feel it. Anger isn't a bad emotion. It's a vital signal that a boundary has been crossed or a need isn't being met. Your anger is valid. Second, prepare for a difficult conversation. This isn't about blaming. Use I statements. Instead of, you never help around the house, try more, when I have to handle most of the chores, I feel exhausted and unappreciated. I need more support. This frames the issue around your feelings, which is less confrontational. Third, you have to be willing to feel the discomfort of potential conflict. Many of us are terrified of arguments, but an honest conflict is often much healthier than the slow poison of resentment. Learning to tolerate the discomfort of setting a boundary is a superpower for healthy relationships. And if you're on the receiving end, gently call it out. You could say, I notice you seem upset. If I did something that bothered you, I'd really like to hear about it so we can work it out. This invites honesty. Resentment is a prison you build with every unspoken anger. The key to freedom isn't pretending you're not angry. It's learning to honor your anger and use it to communicate your truth with courage. The fifth hidden emotional state is a quiet epidemic in our hyper-connected world. It's an ache that lives not in solitude, but often in the middle of a crowd. This feeling is loneliness, and its most deceptive disguise is a packed schedule and constant busyness. We tend to think of loneliness as being physically alone, but that's solitude. Loneliness is an internal emotional state. It's the subjective feeling of being disconnected. You can be in a room full of people, in a marriage even, and feel profoundly lonely if you don't feel seen, understood, and emotionally connected. In our culture, busyness has become a status symbol. We wear our jam-packed schedules like a badge of honor. But for many, this relentless activity is not a sign of a full life, but a defense mechanism against an empty feeling. It's an attempt to outrun the uncomfortable silence where loneliness lives. Think about it. When you have a rare, unscheduled evening, what's your first impulse? Is it to sit quietly with your thoughts? Or do you immediately reach for your phone, turn on the TV, or find some task to do? For many, stillness is uncomfortable because it forces us to feel. The constant need for distraction can be a way of running from the quiet pang of disconnection. Your brain is craving distraction because your heart is craving connection. This creates a paradox. We feel disconnected, so we fill our lives with activities. But these activities are often superficial and leave little room for the deep, meaningful interactions that actually cure loneliness. You might have hundreds of friends online, but no one to call in a crisis. You're constantly communicating, but rarely connecting. So how can you tell if your busyness is a mask for loneliness? First, notice how you feel in moments of quiet. When you're alone, does a sense of emptiness creep in? If you feel a compulsive need to fill every silent moment, that's a powerful sign you are avoiding a feeling. Second, evaluate the quality of your relationships. Ask yourself, when was the last time I had a conversation that felt truly real? Do you have people you can be completely vulnerable with, or are most of your interactions on the surface? Third, notice if your achievements feel hollow. You might be hitting goals and ticking items off your list. But if you get to the end of a busy week and feel drained and unfulfilled, it could be because the activity is a substitute for the genuine connection you truly crave. The solution isn't to just get out more. The solution is to cultivate deeper, more authentic connections, starting with the connection to yourself. The first step is to brave the silence. Intentionally schedule small pockets of time, even just 10 minutes, to be alone without distractions. It might feel weird at first, but this is where you begin to hear what your heart has been trying to tell you. The second step is to shift your focus from the quantity of interactions to the quality of connection. Identify one or two people in your life you feel you could be more open with. Make a conscious effort to deepen that relationship. This can be as simple as sharing something honest about your day. Intimacy is built in small moments of shared authenticity. Finally, you must learn the difference between being alone and being lonely. Solitude can be a beautiful, restorative experience. When you enjoy your own company, you enter relationships from a place of fullness, not neediness. You seek connection to share your life, not to escape from yourself. Your packed schedule might feel important, but it could be walling you off from the one thing you need most. True fulfillment doesn't come from a full calendar, it comes from a full heart. And that requires slowing down enough to let real connection in. The sixth hidden emotion is the invisible force that makes you say yes when you desperately want to say no. It's the nagging feeling that you are perpetually indebted to others. This emotion is guilt, and its most common disguise is a pattern we call people-pleasing. At its core, people-pleasing isn't about genuine kindness. Kindness comes from a place of abundance. People-pleasing, however, is driven by an underlying fear, a sense of obligation, or a need to manage anxiety. It's a strategy to appease a lingering sense of guilt. This guilt can be real or false. True guilt is healthy. It signals we've violated our own values. But false guilt is different. It's a pervasive feeling of being in the wrong even when you've done nothing wrong. It can stem from being made to feel responsible for other people's emotions as a child. This underlying guilt creates a desperate need for external validation. The subconscious logic is, if I can just make everyone happy and be useful enough, then maybe I can finally be worthy of love. This manifests as classic people-pleasing. You can't say no because the thought of disappointing someone brings a crushing wave of guilt. You apologize constantly. You neglect your own needs to cater to others because their needs feel more legitimate. You might even pretend to agree with opinions you don't actually hold, just to keep the peace. Let's look at an example. A manager asks an employee to take on an extra project. The employee's plate is already overflowing. Their rational mind screams, "No!" But a wave of guilt washes over them. They think, if I say no, my boss will think I'm not a team player. I'll be letting them down. That feeling is so uncomfortable that they hear themselves saying, "Of course I'd be happy to," while their stomach churns with anxiety and resentment. This is guilt-driven overcompensation. You go above and beyond, not from passion, but from fear and obligation. But it's a game you can never win. The more you give, the more people expect, which leads to burnout and resentment. You become a collection of other people's needs. So how do you spot this pattern? First, check your guilt meter. When you think about saying no, do you feel a disproportionate sense of guilt? Does the thought of someone being upset with you feel almost unbearable? Second, look at your commitments. Do they reflect your own priorities or what everyone else wants from you? If you're constantly drained, you've likely given away too many yeses. Third, notice how you feel after helping someone. Do you feel genuinely happy or do you feel a subtle resentment? Resentment is often the shadow of a boundary that wasn't set. Breaking free means reclaiming your own worth. The first and hardest step is to learn to tolerate the discomfort of saying no. It will feel selfish at first. Start small, say no to a low-stakes request and notice that the world doesn't end. You are teaching yourself that it is okay for others to have their feelings, and you are not responsible for managing them. The second step is to connect with your own needs. People pleasers are often so focused on others, they have no idea what they themselves want. Start by asking yourself several times a day, what do I need right now? Third, redefine kindness. True kindness isn't about being a doormat. You can be a kind, loving person with strong, clear boundaries. People will respect you more for it. Boundaries are guidelines to teach people how to treat you. And finally, address the underlying guilt. Remind yourself repeatedly that you are not responsible for anyone else's happiness. Your worth is not determined by your usefulness to others. One powerful practice is to look at yourself in the mirror and say, I love you. Your needs matter. It may feel silly, but you are actively reprogramming a lifetime of conditioning. The final hidden emotional state we'll discuss is perhaps the deepest and most misunderstood. It's the ghost that haunts us long after a loss has occurred. This is unresolved grief, and its most common disguise is a profound state of emotional numbness or detachment. When we think of grief, we typically picture intense sadness, and while that's a part of it, it's not the only one. For many, a significant loss, the death of a loved one, the end of a relationship, the loss of a one, is so overwhelming that the psyche simply cannot process it all at once. In response, the brain's emotional system can pull an emergency brake. This is emotional numbness. It's not that you don't feel anything, it's that your capacity to feel has been temporarily shut down as a protective measure. Psychologists sometimes call this emotional anesthesia. It's a state that shields you from the full force of the pain. So while the world expects you to be a wreck, you might feel strangely calm or empty, like you're watching your life from a distance. You might know intellectually that you should be calm, but all you feel is a hollow emptiness. This experience can be incredibly confusing. People often judge themselves harshly for it, thinking, what's wrong with me? Why am I not crying? Does this mean I didn't really love them? But feeling nothing is a very common and normal part of grief. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care so much that your system had to go into survival mode to protect you. The danger lies not in the initial numbness, but when it becomes a chronic state. This is unresolved grief. It's what happens when we never move through the numbness to actually process the underlying pain. We get stuck in that detached state, living life behind a pane of glass. How do you recognize if you're dealing with unresolved grief? First, look for a persistent sense of emotional flatness. Do you have trouble feeling joy or excitement? Do things that used to make you happy now leave you cold? This feeling of being disconnected from the full spectrum of life is a major red flag. Second, notice patterns of avoidance. Do you actively avoid places, people, or conversations that remind you of your loss? A rigid pattern of avoidance can prevent the grieving process from moving forward. Third, pay attention to physical symptoms. Unresolved grief often shows up in the body as chronic fatigue, sleep disturbances, or mysterious aches and pains. Your body is holding the stress that your mind has numbed itself to. So what is the path through this fog? The journey out of numbness is a gentle process of thawing. You cannot force it. The first step is validation. Give yourself permission to be exactly where you are. Stop judging yourself for feeling numb. Say to yourself, it's okay that I feel this way. My system is protecting me. This can relieve the pressure and create a safe space for feelings to eventually emerge. The second step is to create small, safe opportunities for feeling. This isn't about diving headfirst into your pain. It's about dipping a toe in. This could mean looking at an old photo for just a minute or listening to a song that reminds you of the person you lost. The key is to do it in small, manageable doses. Third, engaging your body can be a powerful way to bypass mental defenses. Gentle movement like walking or yoga, or even just placing a hand on your heart and taking a few deep breaths can help to gently release stored trauma and reconnect you to your feelings. Finally, and most importantly, seek connection. Grief craves witness. Sharing your story with a trusted friend, family member, or therapist can be one of the most powerful catalysts for healing. When someone can sit with you in your pain without trying to fix it, it allows the frozen parts of you to slowly begin to thaw. Healing doesn't mean the grief goes away. It means you learn to build a life around it, to carry it with you in a way that no longer requires you to shut down your heart. By gently turning towards the pain, you can move from a life of numb detachment to one of full, vibrant connection once again. We've just walked through a hidden landscape inside ourselves. We've unmasked 7 powerful emotional patterns that can secretly dictate our choices. We saw fear masquerading as procrastination. We uncovered shame hiding behind perfectionism. We recognized envy disguised as criticism. We exposed resentment leaking out as passive aggression. We found loneliness dressed up as busyness. We witnessed guilt driving us to people please. And we felt the emptiness of unresolved grief numbing us to both pain and joy. The common thread is that these dynamics thrive in the dark. They operate from the subconscious, making us feel out of control, confused, and stuck. But today, you turned on the light. The simple act of becoming aware of these patterns is the most powerful step toward taking back control. You now have the map and the tools to recognize their disguises. This isn't about eliminating these emotions. That's impossible. Emotions are messengers. This journey is about learning to listen to them and understand their signals without letting them hijack your life. It's about moving from being a passive reactor to your emotions to becoming a conscious chooser of your actions. You have the power to see the currents, to understand the tides, and to consciously steer your life in the direction of your own choosing. The control you've been seeking isn't about suppressing your feelings, it's about understanding them. And that is where true freedom begins. Thank you for taking this journey with me. If this resonated with you, share in the comments which of these hidden dynamics you recognize most in your own life. Sharing your experience not only helps you, but it helps countless others feel less alone. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.